Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Canucks Conversation, brought to you by the great folks over at Zephyr Epic. You can use promo code HockeySeason, capital H, capital S, all one word, Hockey Season. That will get you $5 off your order at ZephyrEpic.com. That is ZEPHYR Epic. Check them out on all platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, whatever it is. They've got you covered for all of your trading card needs, so be sure to go check them out. They also have a retail location in Surrey, but if you can't make it out to Surrey, remember, check them out online. Free shipping, Canada-wide, on any order over $50. My name's Dave Quadrelli. I'm joined, as always, by the man who built the place, Chris Faber. Our technical producer today, as always, is Alex Allard. We're here to talk Canucks. We're here to talk Filip Hronek. Filip Hronek making his debut for the Vancouver Canucks tonight. Obviously, the Canucks trading a first and a second round pick for Hronek ahead of the deadline. Chris, I don't want to jump into the hockey talk right away because I'm sure you have something, but that's the big topic today in my mind.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything off the top. No baseball talk today, Lisa says. We're going to have to do the, I don't know how you can do your script here that you wrote, but you got to get that in the second segment. Then we have lots of NCAA stuff coming up later in the show. It's a huge day for the NCAA free agents. We already have 3 of the top forward free agents, like one period away right now for being eliminated, so they could be signing with NHL teams very soon. We'll get to that later on in the show. But yeah, let's kick things off. Filip Hronek, it was confirmed today by Rick Tocchet that he is going to make his Vancouver Canucks debut. This is big. This is big. This is the guy they traded a first and a second round pick for. Obviously, people aren't going to judge off of one performance, but there's a lot of hype about this debut. That's for sure. Like, people want to see what Filip Hronek looks like in a Vancouver Canucks jersey. And tonight's going to be that opportunity to see that. I think he's going to be with Wolanin. Not sure, like, they didn't take the ice today. They didn't take the ice this morning for practice. They just did media availability today. So we couldn't really see any line combinations. So people will have to wait till the game to see who Hronek is going to be playing with. Like, there's an option with Hughes. There's an option with Wolanin. We saw him skating on the left side in the one practice that he did have the other day. That could be his thing. Like, I don't know. I think we have to wait and see what Filip Hronek's going to fit in the Vancouver Canucks lineup, but we can touch on a few things in his game. But your thoughts on, I guess, the overall debut here of the guy that you traded a first and a second round pick for as a team that's going to miss the playoffs. Interesting trade, but we've dove into that enough. The player, what do we expect tonight?
It's going to be a game where everything he does is very overblown and very closely examined, which is why I think he's going to get a good chunk of time with Quinn Hughes, man. I think he's going to get put in a position to look really good. I think that's what's going to happen today. Like, I think we're going to see it. I know we had this discussion yesterday, so we won't rehash it, but I really think we're going to see him with Hughes for a solid stretch of time here. What I'm expecting from the player, I know he moves the puck really well. I'm excited to see him because, let's be honest here, none of us watch Detroit Red Wing games, and when we do, we aren't looking at specifically Filip Hronek. Nobody thought he was going to be someone that the Canucks acquired, so to be honest, I haven't watched a ton of the player, but I've heard what other people say about him, and I'm not one of these guys that just wants to, okay, well, I've heard this, so he must be this. I want to see it. I want to see him do it. I want to see him do it in a Canucks uniform. Think about the acquisitions, right? Like, think about Jason Dickinson, for example, right? Where, oh, he does this, he brings this, he's going to be great. Comes to the Canucks, he's poo. Nate Schmidt, same thing. We hear he's this great top 4 defenseman. Now, I understand there was a few things with Schmidt that led to him not being a fit, and he was a great guy. So I'm not trying to rag on anybody here, but this is just to the point of I want to see a player play myself before I try and tell people what to think of the player.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also have to think that the expectation and the baseline of what you expect here has to be much higher with Hronek than those two. And you brought it up, like those two, the players were examples, like Dickinson's going to be the 3C moving forward. That's a tough position to fill, right? So is a top 4 defenseman. Nate Schmidt was supposed to be that. He didn't work out. But they also didn't give up a first and a second round pick for either of those players. They didn't give up that much combined to get both of those players. So with Hronek, you need him to come in and be good. Like, not necessarily from game one, but at least at some point this season, you need to see some good games from him. And I think a lot of people have looked at his stats and specifically this season and looked and be like, okay, he's an offensive guy. He's got 9 goals on the season. That's all fine and dandy. I wanted to bring up his shooting percentage. It's more than double than it was last season in this current year that he's had with the Detroit Red Wings. He's also had a career shooting percentage of 4.7. Those numbers have flipped this year. So that's a big jump going up to 7.4. So, like, the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman, they make some smart moves. With him, he's obviously had a very hot season. He's been scoring goals. I do want to bring this up, though. Can we get the Hronek 5-on-5 stat up here? He's been not as effective offensively, actually pretty low, like a minus 15% off of what the Red Wings were doing. That's not great numbers at 5-on-5 offensively, but at least you can look at what he's done defensively this season with the Red Wings, and you could say, okay, he's improved the play than what you've seen from the Red Wings this season. So that's at least a plus to look at. I think that's the thing the Canucks are looking for here with the right shot defenseman. It's about being able to have the offense in your back pocket when you need it, but really you just need a guy that you can trust to move the puck and play good in his own zone. Like, that's what you want from a right shot defenseman, specifically a guy who's going to be playing behind Quinn Hughes, or as you hope to say, beside Quinn Hughes tonight, I guess. So that'll be interesting. I would love to see it. Like, I would love to see them be a pairing tonight and play, 18 minutes of 5-on-5 together and play extremely well. It's going to be a difficult ask for him to come in immediately and bring that off to his game with Vancouver, where he's only had a couple of skates with these guys. First game's going to be a little bit difficult. It always is for defense pairings. We've seen that quite a bit over the years here with watching the Vancouver Canucks. But I did want to bring up this as well with Filip Hronek. I found this penalty killing stat. Sorry, go ahead.
A little bit of breaking news here. I don't want to interrupt you too much here, but Christian Wolanin, the club just announced that they've signed him to a 2-year, 2-way contract extension. Nice to see. And I got to be honest with you. You know what? Finish up on Hronek. I wanted to get the news out there for the live listeners. We'll talk about the Wolanin extension after. Finish up what you're saying about Hronek on the penalty kill. My apologies for interrupting you.
Yeah, no worries. That's good. We'll get to the Christian Wolanin stuff in just a minute here. Glad to see that he got a contract done. That's great. I think he's going to be playing beside Filip Hronek tonight, but we'll have to wait and see for game time to see what that happens. But like I said, I brought up some numbers here. Not that great effective offensively, but pretty good defensively. Here's the really interesting one that I found on, and this is all from Hockey Viz, by the way. Great stuff over there. I think we used some of their graphics yesterday on the show. You can see a 20% drop in goals against when he's on the penalty kill for Detroit this season. And then when he's been away from them, their average goes up 13%. So that's a 33% swing on them getting scored on offensively, or when they're in their own zone on the penalty kill. And I think that's very impressive. That's going to be a spot that hasn't really gotten that much light shed on it yet with Filip Hronek and what he can bring to a team. But he was very effective this year on the penalty kill. And these are expected goals. These aren't typically just the goals that are going in. You're seeing that with like shooting percentage and goals for and goals against, plus minus, all that stuff. This is the expected goals. He's done an extremely good job on the penalty kill. So it's going to be very curious to see where he fits like that with the Vancouver Canucks, and potentially even playing there tonight, right? Like, why not? Why not get him on the penalty kill with these guys and get things rolling? Because like we've talked about for a long time, this is a extended training camp. We've been saying it. The coach has been saying it. The general manager said it. So let him roll, let him struggle, let him learn, let him develop, and all that stuff. Like, let him learn the system and play into it for a little bit. So I expect Hronek to get half decent minutes tonight. I expect him to be a pretty big fixture in what the Canucks defense core looks like tonight. I think that's why they've held him out for a little bit, given him an opportunity to skate on his own, skate with the team, and now get him in the lineup. This is an NHL defenseman. He's a top 4 right shot defenseman. He's a big addition to the Vancouver Canucks. I'm excited to see what he looks like in number 17 for the Vancouver Canucks tonight.
Okay, so let's get to Wolanin here. Let's talk about Christian Wolanin, re-signed by the club moments ago to a 2-year, 2-way contract extension. This is a guy the Canucks added, and he has just worked his butt off basically since he got to Vancouver, Chris. And we were impressed with him in preseason. Then he got sent down, and he did really well in Abbotsford, AHL All-Star. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, and it's good for the Canucks, don't get me wrong, that they were able to get him on a 2-way contract. Like, I would have expected that maybe he would get a 1-way, especially for 2 years. That's a fantastic contract for the Canucks. Dollywall hasn't tweeted out the annual average value yet, or what Wolanin will be paid in the minors in the NHL. Everybody knows this, I think, at this point, but just for those that don't, 2-way just means you're paid a different salary in the NHL and the AHL. It has nothing to do with waiver eligibility. So Christian Wolanin, 2-year, 2-way contract extension, tidy piece of business for the Canucks. Dare I say it, Chris? It's a good contract. It's a really good contract for the Canucks to add to their defense depth. A guy that we've really liked to see.
Yeah, people in the chat are excited. Everybody is. Everybody's pumped about Wolanin and getting the contract extension, as am I. I'm very excited. I think he's been great so far this season. In the NHL, he's been excellent in the AHL. And I think the two-way contract's kind of perfect. And what I'm going to guess here is his number in the minors is going to be pretty strong in its own right? Like he's going to get a decent amount of money. That's something that you can give the Vancouver Canucks as an organization props for, is they're willing to pay their guys a pretty good AHL salary if they're willing to kind of do this 2K thing. Dominic in the chat here says 775 based on cap friendly, 500K in the minors. So that's a lot of money to play in the minors. That is strong. That is what's going to keep him around. And it's great because he's a guy that I think is good for the Vancouver Canucks' defense depth, right? And you're getting him now basically league minimum. You're paying him, a pretty penny to be in the AHL when he is going to be there, if he is there. So happy for him through and through. This is, I think, a win for both the player and the organization. Yeah, you mentioned like one-way deals are what you really want. But for Wolanin, like he's battled so much in the past few years, he's really got to kind of prove it on this contract again to really kind of earn that spot of getting a one-way deal. But for now, this contract makes a lot of sense, I think, for both sides. And it's good to hear that it's multiple years, right? Like having a couple years with Wolanin. I like that. I love that. I think that's a great addition to this team. And the fact that the money is completely variable in the AHL is awesome. That's, yeah, through and through. This is a tidy piece of business. I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good bet. It's a good bet again on the Canucks. This is a player that the organization likes. He really likes the organization. Friend of the show, the Canucks convo curse is officially dead because is this the first player that we've had on the show that the club has re-signed or signed to a contract extension, Chris? Because I'm trying to think. He might be the first. Well, that doesn't count. Extension. That is contract extension. A player that hasn't been traded away.
I like to think of it as prospects that don't make it to the NHL for certain reasons, whether it be traded away. So I'm giving McDonough, I'm giving him the plug there. Jack Rathbone got an extension. He was on the show like 4 times that season last year. So count that. But yeah, he didn't go down the road of Mikey DiPietro or who else was it? Who else was a big one on the show here?
Adam Gaudette.
Adam Gaudette. Meyerberg got a lot of talk on this show as well. But hey, they broke the slump on that one. I like it. I like that that they got this deal done. Final thing I wanted to mention about Hronek, though, as we I think we can spend some time on Wolanin tomorrow. I wouldn't mind talking to him about the contract before we actually have a conversation about it. So Harm and I will handle that tomorrow. But with Hronek, very curious to see, not necessarily this season, but I think you can get a small indication of it from this season. Like, how many minutes is this guy going to play, right? Because over the past 4 seasons, each of those years has seen a drop in minutes. He's down to about 21 minutes a night right now in Detroit. Obviously, personnel has made a difference there. Mo Seider coming in and being so effective is obviously going to eat up some minutes. He's their horse now in Detroit. But I'm curious, like, do you think Hronek's more of a 21-minute guy or like a 25-minute guy? What do you think he's closer to when he's actually playing with the Vancouver Canucks? Do you think he's a 21 or 25? What's he closer to?
Tonight, I think he's closer to 21.
Tonight, no, not tonight. But like in general.
Yeah, let me get to it. I think long term, I think he's closer to 25. And I think maybe Quinn Hughes now, you hope, is closer to 25 than he is to 30, right? Like, you hope that in turn it means Quinn Hughes is closer to 25, but I think Hronek's closer to 25. Like, Myers logs 23, right? Like, usually it's about 20 to 23 for Tyler Myers. For Hronek, you have to think it's more, right? Like, you have to. They need him to play more than that.
No, I agree. And I think it is going to depend on how they utilize this guy. And also that kind of opens up my eyes too to how much is Tyler Myers going to play? Like, if Myers isn't playing if Hronek isn't on that top pairing with Quinn Hughes and Myers is now like your third right shot defenseman on the depth chart, like, that's very possible that could happen because obviously Hughes and Myers doesn't really work as a pairing together. But if you got one defenseman on each of those top 2 pairings eating up 23 to 30 minutes, really, like, you are looking at your defense and taking a lot of a weight off of these guys. I wonder what Tyler Myers looks like playing 16 minutes a night, 18 minutes a night. Like, I wonder if that helps his game a little bit. I think if you want to look at things optimistically, that might be something that you can kind of take away from Tyler Myers' games. Like, maybe he looks a little bit better not being asked to be a 23-minute guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Does he look a little bit better? And hey, like, I was listening to Halford and Bruff this morning, and Frank Cervalli, friend of the show over at Daily Faceoff, was on the show Halford and Bruff this morning, and what he said was, Myers right now, the asset that you have in Tyler Myers compared to what you're going to have after that signing bonus has been paid, like Myers is a lot more valuable once that signing bonus has been paid, and he's only owed $1 million in real dollars. So, yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. I got to go let out Bert, but you keep it going.
Sure. On that note, we did hear Rick Tocchet yesterday have some words about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who a lot of people, and we've discussed this on the show, but I don't think we've gone down this road like too far. Like, I don't think we've gone down the road of talking about an OEL buyout at a crazy level. Like, I've heard a lot of other people very much like spending a lot of time on this. I think it's too much, right, to buy him out this offseason, and you kind of heard that set in stone by Rick Tocchet, the way that he spoke about it and wanting to have a big offseason. And I think Tocchet, something that he's talked about a little bit lately, is wanting to have these guys around in Vancouver for the summer, or at least parts of the summer. Like, go get your vacation, get your rest time, but be ready to work together and do this in the summer together. And I think OEL might be a piece that is like that, where he's got to kind of learn a new role with this Vancouver Canucks team if he is going to be back. And now with changes to the defense core and what I expect to see even a bunch more, like, it's not the craziest thought in the world to think that the Canucks' third pairing next season is like OEL and Tyler Myers, which is wild because that's a $13 million cap hit playing on your third pairing. And obviously that's not ideal, but I think you need to make an argument for that being a positive because you don't have the long-term effects of that buyout. That buyout's going to kill you with the $4.5 million, like in a couple of those seasons, couple seasons over $2 million like that. 8 years of that is really going to hurt you over a long-term time here. And it might be easier to kind of eat it for next season. But then again, like, that contradicts a lot of the moves that they've made up to this point in the direction that they're kind of going with, needing to be competitive for next season. So if you do bite the bullet and buy out OEL this year, you get the opportunity for next year. It's just, it's a short-sighted view, in my opinion, to buy him out. And I don't think you can move him. I don't think he's going to retire. I don't think you're going to be able to get off this money at least next season. The only way to actually get off of the money for next season is to buy him out, because it's only like a $700,000 cap hit at that point. I just think the long-term effects of it are going to hurt this organization more than just having to play him on a third pairing next year and just eat that you have a $13 million third pairing.
Yes, my apologies. Sorry. That was I don't know why he waits to pee halfway through the show. I let him go right before. Anyways, we're not going to continue this. So we're not going to continue the dog talk as he kind of freaks out in the back, of course. Great listening for sure for all the listeners. Okay, so I want to kind of bring it back here. Go on.
All right. Yeah, before we get to best on best, what do you think? Saturday's got to be McDonough's debut, right? Like, that makes a lot of sense. In Chicago, on the road, family can get there pretty easily. They're from the Boston area, quick flight, you're over in Chicago. I think that crazy storm's kind of past the East Coast now. It's got to be McDonough on Saturday, right? Like, that's got to be the debut. He's been around the team long enough. I know he hasn't had 10 hard practices, but it's like, this dude's a hockey player. Like, get him in the lineup for Saturday. That's my thoughts on it. He's got to play on Saturday against Chicago. And, with a loss, if they end up losing tonight, and listen, this is a bad Sharks team. They are losing a ton of games, doing an excellent job tanking right now. If they win, I wouldn't put so much into the win unless the team just plays like one of the better games they've had this season. I would think that there's a priority here to kind of get McDonough into the lineup, and I hope to see it on Saturday, because we're not going to see him tonight. But Saturday makes a lot of sense for me. That's a game against Chicago. Feels like a really good one for McDonough.
Saturday is a good game. I want to see him in the lineup on Saturday, and we've talked about this before, but especially with the family in town, you want to see him on that line. You want to see him in Phil DiGiuseppe's place, right? Like, you want to see him playing with JT Miller. You want to see him on the second power play unit. Give him a chance. Give him a good chance to succeed. Just throw him in. Don't put him on a fourth line. Don't put him on the third line. Put him right in the top six. Family in town. Let them see what he can do.
Yep, all about it. I'm down for it. I'd love to see what he looks like. And yeah, you're running out of games. You got a dozen games left. Get the kid in the lineup here pretty quick. All right, let's get to the best on best. This is your segment here to dive into. And I got Alex all messed up on the ticker here. That's what happens. You leave the room for the dog. Oh, here we go. Now it's going. Best on best. I didn't give you long enough of a runway yesterday. So do we have the McDavid clip? Can we get that up here, Alex? Do we still have the McDavid clip? I think I got it in there. Let's just get, if we have it, Connor McDavid's comments on the, he mentioned this. This is like the day after him watching the Shohei Ohtani thing, battle against Mike Trout, which was a lot of fun, the World Baseball Classic and all that. And then there's been discussion about international play and how you can actually get best on best from hockey players. Do we have it here, Alex? We might not have it.
I thought it was really cool. It's what we've been asking for in hockey for a long time, right? It's best on best. And, look, everyone's talking about baseball. And, did you see, Ohtani versus Trout? And, that's what hockey's been missing for, almost a decade now. So, that's what we've been asking for.
Best on best would be incredible. And as Connor McDavid said, hockey's been missing it for about 10 years now. Quickly, Quads, without talking about baseball, because Lisa said no baseball talk. We got to listen to Lisa. Mama Lisa's always right. But what do you think the NHL, and specifically hockey, I guess, would do to, no, I guess more the NHL, right? I feel like the NHL is going to be the driver behind this because they want to get some money out of this. They don't want to send it all off to the Olympics and let them rake in the dough. The NHL probably wants to make some money out of doing something here with some international best on best, but how do they make it feasible?
That's the golden question, right? Like, that's what everybody's wondering, because the NHL understands growing the game to some extent, right? Like, to some extent, to their credit, the NHL understands the value of making their product available and making their product something that people around the world can see, right? Like, we see this with the global series that they do. The Canucks played a game in Shanghai in 2017. We see games in Czechia. We see games in Finland. We see this a lot with the NHL. Like, they clearly have a focus on it. The problem is they want to make money off it, which is fine. I understand it. Like, even Major League Baseball, the World Baseball Classic is funded by the MLB, right? Like, the World Baseball Classic is an MLB-led tournament. There's a reason Rob Manfred was there when the championship was handed out, right? Like, the MLB is very much so involved in that tournament, even if the winning team only had 3 MLB players on it. But regardless, the point here is that the NHL somehow needs to make money off it. So that's kind of our hurdle here, is the NHL really needs to figure out a way where they are benefiting from it. And that's kind of the problem that it seems like we always hit, is the players want to play in the Olympics. And the whole reason the World Baseball Classic is even a thing, Chris, is because the Olympics stopped recognizing baseball as a summer sport. Like, baseball wasn't played in the Olympics. I think it was 2006 that decision came out, or the year before, whenever the last Summer Olympics was. That was when the first World Baseball Classic was. The thing about the World Baseball Classic that differs from the World Cup of Hockey, the first of which was in 2004, the second of which was in 2016, Chris. How did we go 12 years between World Cups of hockey? How are you going to build anything when you wait that long in between? The thing that the World Baseball Classic has done so well is build anticipation, right? Like, fans know when it is. You just saw Shohei Ohtani strike out Mike Trout, one of the greatest moments in the sport of baseball to ever happen. We just saw it. Now people are wondering, oh, wait, when's the next one of these? The answer is in 3 years. Like, the next one is in 2026, and people are excited about it. People are excited because they just saw a really, really solid showing from MLB players, from players all over the world, right? They just saw it, and people are excited. Like, there's anticipation going into the next World Baseball Classic. And how could there not be? Like, how could there not be, right? Like, people see this and say, okay, this is clearly really good for the sport of baseball. The sport of baseball won. That's what everybody kept saying after that game, right? Is the sport of baseball won. Can we say the same for hockey in anything that we've seen the NHL do? Like, I'm not saying that the global series and all that is a bad thing by any means. What I'm saying is there's like, yesterday I asked you who won the World Cup of Hockey in 2016, and you couldn't answer it. And that's not a knock on you. I don't think a lot of people could. The answer is Canada, by the way. I Googled it today. I had to Google it. The answer was Canada, and neither of us knew it. In 2010, we can tell you who won. We can tell you who assisted the goals. We can tell you probably what minute it went, like who was on the ice, all that sort of stuff. We can tell you all that because that was a really special moment that happened at the 2010 Olympics. The World Cup of Hockey could get there. Like, that's my take, Chris. My ultimate take is that the World Cup of Hockey could get there. It's not worth just punting on and saying, well, it's not the Olympics and nothing's going to ever compare to the Olympics, so not worth it. The World Cup of Hockey could get there, but the NHL needs to commit to it. The NHL needs to come around on the idea of, okay, this is what we're going to do. We may not see immediate success. It may not be the World Baseball Classic right away, but if we stick with it, like the World Baseball Classic has done, maybe we'll get to a point where the World Baseball Classic is at right now, where it's in a really good place. Like the World Baseball Classic is in a really, really good place. The World Cup of Hockey happened in 2016. People want it again, obviously, but there was no one really clamoring for it and saying, wow, we really, really need to see this again. Obviously, the players want something, and the World Cup of Hockey is a fine start, but the NHL needs to actually commit to it and say, okay, we're going to do this for 10 years or 20 years, whatever, because I guess you'd have it every like 4 years or whatever, right? We're going to do it for this long, and then we'll revisit the results. But we're not going to have 2 tournaments over the course of 20 years and say, well, this isn't working. You need to commit to it. You need to figure out a plan, and you need to commit to it, because all we're seeing, the ultimate take, Chris, is that best on best is good for any sport, right? On the national level and international level, excuse me. And with the WBC, you saw that firsthand. And Connor McDavid, that sounds like a guy, like that quote we just heard, that sounds like a guy to me, Chris, who's dubbed the best in his sport and hasn't been given the chance to show it on an international stage.
No, and it's tough, and it's difficult for hockey too, because I think I touched on this a little bit yesterday. The World Championships is a big deal to every nation that's not in North America. So the United States and Canada, they don't seem to care as much about the World Championships. You'll see NHL players go. Like, I don't think they've gone for the past couple because of COVID and a little bit difficult traveling to Europe from North America on that spot. But like, you will see a handful of guys. Normally, like the team's pretty filled with like depth players from Canada and the United States that didn't make the NHL playoffs and have something to do, so they go play. But that's difficult to ask at the end of a season. I just think it's going to be hard. You need to make this I think it's got to be like a preseason thing. Like, it's got to be a little bit before the preseason, before training camp. That's a big ask. It's also difficult to figure out, is it going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 4 years? What's it going to be? Or is the NHL going to commit to making this like a similar thing to an Olympic break? Like, every 4 years, they take 2 weeks off. They play the World Hockey Championships. That seems like maybe the best option. But there's also like, I don't know, there's binary answers here. I don't think there's more than that. Like, there's the option to make this an NHL thing. I think the other option for NHL players to be this is like the NHL needs to collab with something, whether it be the World Championships or whatever it is. Like, they need to make sure that their best players are not necessarily forced to play in this, but like wanting to play. And it needs to be something that these players want to play. When you have the backing of Connor McDavid and he's willing to come out and speak about it, props to McDavid for saying that, right? Like, I really think that quote resonated with a lot of people on this topic. And to me, yeah, there's 2 options. It's the NHL makes this all in-house and it's theirs, and they try their best, and hopefully, like you said, they do more than 2 tournaments in 20 years. But if they don't do that, I think there could be an option to work with the World Championships and make this a little bit of a different thing. But that's going to be very difficult, because then it's like, if you want to do it in season during the NHL, you have to get the SHL, the KHL, the Liga. You have to get them all to commit to taking that 2-week break together. So that's what makes it very difficult, because you're going to want more than NHLers there, right? Like, Russia's going to want their KHL guys there. If Russia's even in this thing, we don't really know even on that topic yet. But there's guys in Sweden that are going to want to be on this team. There's guys from Liga that are going to be on Finland's team. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think you can absolutely move in the right direction of starting to create this as a 4-year thing. And that's the good thing about it, is like, hey, it's only got to be every 4 years. Like, organize one right now, start working on it for like 2 years down the road. You have a long runway to work this out, and then you run that, and then you have 4 years to say, okay, this worked, this didn't. We have 4 years to figure it out again. Like, I would like to see some commitment to it. And yes, Jesse,
do you know what
nailed the word.
Do you know what I'd like to see? Also, word of the day, binary. Do you know what I'd like to see, Chris? And it was funny because I was thinking this idea out, and I think at the core, we just want to see Team Canada play. We want to see the US probably with their best program that they've ever had. They have the most talent, I say, right now. JT Miller would be on that team, Quinn Hughes on that team, Thatcher Demko on that team. You'd see all that, right, for Team USA. And the thing that I keep coming back to is, okay, well, maybe there's a world where you can just do a Canada US exhibition every 2 years, every 3 years, whatever, and it's just Team Canada, Team USA. It's put on by the NHL. It's an exhibition, the best Canadian players, the best American players, and you make it actually matter. Like, I think about the Bean Pot, right? Like, I think about the Bean Pot as an example. And Canada US is one, and then I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, maybe then you could do Finland Sweden as well so that those players don't feel left out. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm just describing the World Cup of Hockey, which the NHL should have. And that's what I come back to, is it needs to be something the NHL puts on, and they need to do it, because if you're going to keep using the Olympics as a bargaining chip when you're doing the CBA, you're never going to get anywhere. And we've seen the results of that. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, I think there's at least like what I kind of mentioned there is like, hey, if you plan it from 2 years, just like get hockey, like the IHF or whatever hockey you have to deal with, I guess. Just like tell Liga, tell the SHL, tell the KHL, like, hey, if you want to send your players to this best on best tournament 2 years from now, mark these 2 weeks off. Then you have years to prepare for it. I really think it's not that hard to do. And I think players would love it. And then the other players who aren't, going to play for their teams, they get an option to have 2 weeks off. And that sounds pretty good too. So I think a lot of players would be in agreement with this. And a lot of players who are the best in the world want to show that they're the best in the world. So I can't see this being that hard of a thing to do. The only thing that makes it difficult, and this argument you have for hockey, you don't have this as much for baseball, though we did see a season-ending injury at the World Baseball Classic during some celebrations. Bro, you know what? They got to start practicing celebrations in baseball, because these guys, they run into each other, start busting ACLs like nothing, bending over, picking up crackers and busting a back. But like, I think it's very possible to make this happen. You just need to get the players to commit and want to make it important, right? Because they have to play hard. They can't come in there and play like it's an NHL All-Star game. That would be the biggest worry that I would have about this thing being a flop, is if you're not getting guys trying to win like a gold medal for their team like they do at the Olympics. It needs to have not the same value, because I think that's almost impossible, but like you're going to need some sort of incentive, and I just don't know what that is. I don't think it's money. Like, and it's going to be hard in year one to really incentivize the guys to play their hearts out for their country. And because it's not the Olympics, it's going to take time, but you need to start somewhere. And I think that's where I kind of close out on the topic anyways.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. It's just that, I love baseball. Ohtani Trout, that was a great moment, and I hope to see it. I hope to see it in the NHL one day.
By the way, I'm getting ripped here. They say word of the day is supposed to be over 7 words. People don't even look for them and they don't see that. Let me tell you this. Tomorrow's word of the day is a 16-letter word of the day. So if you miss that, I don't know if you're even paying attention. All right, odds and ends. It is a massive day for the NCAA free agent pool. We already have games going on right now, by the way. 3 players, the top forwards I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, they might be available free agents within, they might be that already. Now, we've been going for 30 minutes. I'm going to guess that Western Michigan is lost. Maybe someone can let me know in the chat. But Cornell, Minnesota Mankato, Western Michigan, and Ohio State, they are all lower seeds in their games today. So they're playing teams that throughout the season were better than them. Could they win? Yes, they could all win. But Western Michigan seems like they've already lost. Cornell, they're going to play a little bit later. Minnesota Mankato, I think 2 and 2:30 for those 2 games. And Ohio State's one to watch as well. These all have some interesting free agents, so let's get right to them. Cornell, they have Sam Malinsky and Max Andreev. They play Denver tonight. Denver is defending champions of the NCAA hockey tournament. They're very good. Would not shock me at all to see Cornell lose tonight. They are one of the lower seeded teams in this whole Sweet 16. They have some good players there. Sam Malinsky, Max Andreev. You got the right D, you got the center. Watch for those two, not necessarily signing tonight. Friday, Saturday, could be as quick as that. Minnesota Mankato, there's obviously a lot of names, and we've talked about one for basically, it feels like 4 years now. Jake Livingstone is the big right D out of there. Akito Hirose is the left shot defenseman. Brendan Fury. And Minnesota Mankato, though they have a very strong team and a veteran team as well, they play St. Cloud State, who has just been on one this year. They're a good team. And that's going to be a tough matchup for Minnesota Mankato. I mentioned Western Michigan. They have Ryan McAllister, the left winger. They have the center, Max Sasson, and the right winger, Jason Poland. That's basically just their top line, and they've been rolling all season long, playing really good hockey. All three of them could be leaving after this season. And, I got to check the chat. Somebody check it. They get eliminated? I think they've been eliminated. So that's 3 players to watch for the forward group. And then Ohio State has a 21-year-old whom Dollywall mentioned named Cole McWard. I don't know much about this kid. I haven't had anything when doing research. Nobody has written anything about this kid. I'm guessing Dollywall just had an agent tell him something about this guy. But he's 21 years old. So it's nice to get these 21-year-olds in the system and maybe develop in the AHL. But so he's one of those ATO options, but I feel like guys in NCAA don't want to come out just to be an ATO option as well, like especially a player who thinks that they're going to be able to land an NHL contract. I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen there with anybody. But we'll have to see. Dollywall here's something. He's going to talk about it, and he talked about it today. So keep an eye on Cole McWard, who didn't have a very good season this year, but he's 21. So he's 21 years old. That's a good thing. Talk about last night a little bit. Some more odds and ends. Arshdeep Bains in the AHL last night. He was excellent. I tell you, man. Watching Arshdeep Bains, we talked about him a lot on this show. I do want to play for everybody here on YouTube here. I want to show his goal from yesterday. He scored it sort of like you might remember the Odell Beckham Jr. goal that or the touchdown that he scored a few years ago. Let's get this video up here for people on YouTube. Here it is. So Arshdeep Bains, in a game where he was playing excellent throughout. I do have a shift that I want to showcase a little bit later. Goes to the net hard on this goal last night, continues to score, put up points, reaches back like OBJ, picks the puck up, puts it down, and ends up scoring. It was a beautiful goal. If you're just listening to this on the podcast, head over to my Twitter account. I got it posted there from last night. You might need to do a little bit of scrolling because the SHL boys been popping off again today. But Arshdeep Bains reaches back with the right hand, OBJ style, brings it back down. I don't know, maybe he held on to it for a second too long, but the rest called it a good goal. So that was the goal last night from Arshdeep Bains. Good stuff. I do also want to showcase just one shift. I talk about this, and this is why I'm so happy we're on YouTube, because I can kind of showcase some of the things that we've talked about on the podcast for years. And if you haven't seen this, if you're just listening on the podcast, I'll try and talk your way through it here. But this is a look at one shift from Arshdeep Bains last night, where he starts on the right wing. When he's in the offensive zone, you can see him here, number 9. He chases down the puck, makes one good pass under pressure, picks that puck up very hard off of his stick, makes a good pass right there as well. He ends up making 5 pass attempts on this shift. All 5 of them are completed stick to stick on a guy, continuing the play. Just an overall really good shift from Arshdeep Bains here, and it's about a 40-second shift, so we'll run it for everybody on YouTube here. But I tell you, this kid's been playing really good. He obviously got the goal last night, and that was great to see, but it's just been through and through. He continues to look better. Like he was the best player for Abbotsford last night. He was the best player on the ice, and you could see the ice time getting a little bit rewarded late in the game from Jeremy Colleton, who looked at who was going for this team, and he ends up going with Arshdeep Bains to rock it out there. So, I mean, it was a really good game from Bains last night. Like I said, I think he was the best Abbotsford Canuck last night for them. They weren't able to clinch a playoff spot last night. Whoa, that scared me there. I got the mute up here. Let's pull this up here. They got the Filip Johansson goal. We'll play this for you as well. And then we'll get out of here. Oh, scared the heck out of me with that sound. Hopefully I didn't get everyone else on YouTube. Filip Johansson, he picked up 3 points today. He's got a goal right here. There he is, wristing it into the back of the net. Picked up a goal and 2 assists today, and he assisted on a goal from Louis Eriksson late in the game. So good stuff there from Filip Johansson. It's funny because earlier in this series, Lucas Forsell, who's a fellow Canucks prospect, he ended up picking up 3 points. Johansson felt a little bit like he wasn't in the game as much. He ended up deciding to pick up 3 points of his own today in the SHL playoffs. So good stuff there from Filip Johansson as well, and all throughout. Pretty nice little day for everybody in the Canucks prospect pool system. Quads, I do want to bring up one final thing. The NHLPA released the results of their player poll, where over 500 players were polled, and no Canucks showed up in any of the answers from the players polled around the league. I think the player that wasn't left there was Quinn Hughes on the NHLPA defenseman. Can we get this up, Alex? The NHLPA defenseman here. This is how players for the top defenseman in the game.
Oliver Ekman-Larsson made the vote, not for best defenseman, for best dressed, Oliver Ekman-Larsson picked up votes. He was the only Canuck to pick up votes. So he was the only one, but yes, you just said it. Top defenseman in the game. Quinn Hughes continues to be underrated, this time by players around the league as well. Obviously, Rasmus Dahlin, Adam Fox ahead of him, Erik Karlsson, Roman Josi, Victor Hedman, Kyle McCarr. I'd say the only one that you really have an issue where you say who's the top defenseman, I say the only real one is Rasmus Dahlin. Like, I think Quinn Hughes is better than Rasmus Dahlin because I think a lot of this is their history as well of these defensemen. It's not who's having the best season this season, because I think we've talked about it. Quinn Hughes is having a remarkable season. I think if he does it again next year, then he'll really start to get the respect he deserves. He's going to pick up more Norris votes than he did last year, and that's where you start, right? Like, that's where you start if you're Quinn Hughes. If he puts together another really good season next year where he's playing those top minutes, which he will be, and defending really well, it's not going to go unnoticed any longer. I think this might be the last player poll you see that doesn't have Quinn Hughes' name on it.
Yeah, I think I'd be curious to see who else got some votes and what percentage they got. Like, Quinn Hughes has to at least have 1% of the NHL thinking he's the best defenseman in the league, right? Like 1% of the NHL has to think that at this point. And we'll see what happens with him moving forward. We'll see what happens if he ends up playing with Filip Hronek tonight and they just roll through the rest of their careers together as partners for life. So we'll see what happens with that. But we're hoping for a good game tonight. I know I have some excitement again. It feels like with Canucks hockey specifically, this is how I'm playing. Commander Vander says 64% of people are going to say Hronek is the top defenseman in the game next year after watching him play. Maybe he improves with Quinn Hughes. Probably the best defense partner that Hronek's ever had in his life. So we'll see. But what I was trying to say there is we're at the point in the season, and I feel like this happens a lot of Canucks seasons, and then there's not something to get you excited about a game, right? Like, there are times where it is just a death march to watch this team in the final few months of the season. It's been like that with the people that wanted to see this team in the playoffs. But, we've had some Archer Sealaws. We've had some Artie parties over the last little bit. Like, that's been a lot of fun, especially with this show. The Artie party's been great. But at the same time, you now have Aidan McDonough around. You have some guys like Christian Wolanin playing some higher minutes. You now have Filip Hronek coming back. At least there's some things to keep us interested in this team, right? Because we've seen years where people have just not cared. Like, I can remember last season, like, watching some games late in the season where it was like a Sunday 3:00 game and nobody is tweeting about it. Like, nobody is talking about it online or anything. At least people are going to be talking about Hronek tonight, right? And then people are going to be talking about McDonough on Saturday, still talking about Hronek on Saturday. Like, they are giving us at least some storylines and some interesting things to keep us engaged on this team. Though it costs them a first and a second round pick, at least there's something tonight to be excited about. Yeah,
absolutely. And as we've discussed, hopefully for next season as well, as they look to get some new season ticket holders. Right, Chris?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Leo Carlson just got named best junior player and best U20 player in the SHL. So if the Canucks land him, they'll put him on the season tickets. Most underrated player. What do you got here, Alex? Alex wants to bring up something, I think. Maybe not.
I think it's just the fact that Alexander Barkov still is considered the most underrated player. Like, you can't be the most underrated player 9 years in a row and still be underrated. I think you're properly rated.
I'd rock with Tage Thompson. I'm here with the 4.3%. I think he's incredible. I love watching the dude play. He might be one of my favorite players to watch play in the NHL right now.
Is he underrated? I've seen a lot of Tage Thompson coverage. I would say Mika Zibanejad, Braden Point.
No, I think Tage Thompson gets some hype because he's big, but I think he's better than people even think. Every game I've watched of him, I think he's one of the most dominant wingers in the game right now. That's where I'm at.
I think that's the coverage I've seen, is that's the case. Anyways, let's go. Betway, get us out of here.
All right, here we go. Betway. Unless we got Alex. Did we get you, Alex? Do I have Alex muted? What's going on here? Producer Alex.
No, I'm here.
Okay. Alex just wants to yell about some stuff. What'd you pull that graphic up for, Alex? Did I put that in there?
No, but someone in the chat said it was funny. Dominic said it was funny.
Okay, I missed the chat here. I got my Betway here in front of me.
And really,
anyway,
a point about Barkov. Barkov shouldn't really be on there. He also he finished third in most complete player. So how can you finish third in that and then be underrated?
Oh God, that's great. Alex, how you doing? You having a good day, Alex? Good day so far, Alex? You been busy?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. People want to learn more about producer Alex here in the chat. We'll get into Alex's life a little bit more later in the season. Let's get to Betway.
Tyler Cleven's son.
Oh, well, save that crap for the Send stock, Alex. Let's get to Betway here. Let's go with this thing here. Betway. Here we go. Betway. Anthony Betvilliers. I was going to try and mix up some sort of Betway thing. Our first bet, either ors. You know we love these over on Betway. Betway, the good stuff over there. Good folks over there. Betway. Bet the responsible way. And got to be 19 plus to play in Ontario here. Betway. Anthony Betvilliers or Brock Besser to score a goal in tonight's game. Minus 138 over on the betting lines there. $10 bet's going to return you $17.27 over on Betway. Take your Betway money. What do you do with $17, Quads? What's the best thing you can do for $17?
Resign Christian Wolanin. Incorrect.
It's get a solid value menu items from McDonald's. You probably get 5 there, 5 value menu items. And okay, hold on a second. The old value menu items that you like the McDoubles, $1.89 they used to be. They're $3 now, $3.59 for a McDouble. You got to be, anyways. So you got to hit on a few of these bets to be able to freaking afford McDoubles nowadays. So Betvilliers or Brock Besser score a goal. Minus 138, like I said, $10 bet returns to $17.27. Second one, the big one, San Jose Sharks, and I forgot the Artie Party music here. San Jose Sharks to win. That's right. I'm taking the Sharks to win over 6.5 total goals and JT Miller to pick up a goal in tonight's game. $10 bet there. That's going to return you 80. That calling it an Artie Party when you're in that. Well, Artie Party, you take that $80. What do? You head down to McDonald's and
I like that.
Boom. You take that $80 at McDonald's, you're probably getting 3 or 4 chicken Big Macs with that. So you're laughing at that point. There you go. So Sharks to win, over 6.5 total goals, and JT Miller to score a goal. $10 bet. That's going to return you 80, and you're feasting like a king down there with that, especially at McDonald's. I'll tell you that. I've had McDonald's on my mind. I held myself off from ordering it today, and now it's all bursting out of me because I just want it so goddamn bad.
All right. Well, you'll get some. You'll go get yours. Have you tried? Are we gonna try the chicken Big Mac? Like, are we going to do that?
No, I don't need to. I know what it's all about. I've been getting them for years. I'll tell you, we'll take you out one time. We'll get you the land. What is it? Land, Air, and Sea Burger. You ever had that one?
No, but I've heard about it. Yes, I've heard about it.
It's a quarter pounder patty. Or no, you get a Big Mac. You take one of the patties out. You need a junior chicken patty. You put that in, then you put the Filet-O-Fish on top. So it's a Big Mac, but it's got land, air, sea, Filet-O-Fish, chicken burger, and then just like the hamburger. There you go.
Okay. Very nice. All right. Well, we'll close it out there on that note.
There we go.
Thank you to everybody in the YouTube live chat for interacting with us. Canucks play tonight. We didn't even mention it. Sharks turns out. That's the opponent tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow. Well, Harmon and Chris will be back tomorrow to break it down. But for now, signing off, my name's Dave Quadrelli, for our technical producer, Alex Allard, and of course, my co-host, Chris Faber. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Canucks Conversation.
Light it up, Alex. Where is it? There it is. Light it up, Alex. Woo! You're giving it to Sharks tonight. Next page.
Thanks for listening to Canucks Conversation. Hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.
How about keep it to a thank you, Jim?